This is not a Volkswagen Tiguan. This is not a Volkswagen Tiguan. If you think this is a Tiguan, then I sentence you to 10 years of driving a Tiguan. Okay, Tiguans aren't that bad. The 2010 Volkswagen Touareg TDI is the crossover that actually crossed over. Rugged enough on the outside to endure father time and comforting enough on the inside to give hope that there's life after infidelity. This may get mistaken for a Tiguan, but this is almost certainly not a Volkswagen Tiguan. The Tiguan is smaller, cheaper, and it's probably a smarter choice if the goal is to drive a car for people who don't arch their back during doggy. But in terms of crossover SUVs, the 2010 Volkswagen Touareg feels more like something you're intended to actually drive. Because it trusts you to drive it without crashing it into the side of Weenie Hut Jr. And hey, maybe that trust is misplaced, but then society is built on mistrust, right? It's why we check the bag when we're handed our food at the drive-thru. And look, I know there are better options than the drive-thru. But what am I supposed to eat when I'm too busy to cook, but all that's left is the same old fast food bullshit?
Today's episode of Regular Car Reviews is sponsored once again by Factor. You see, I didn't nick my counter this time. I'm learning. Licking a knife. I know what you're thinking. Microwavable meals, are they really that good? Trust me. I'm a go to the gym in the morning type of guy, and when I get back, it's time to work, it's time to make videos, so it's time to make some coffee too. That's gonna go well with that. So that's why I love Factor meals, and you're gonna like them too. Factor deserves fresh coffee. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code REGULARFB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code REGULARFB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. Thank you so much to Factor, who's been sticking by Regular Car Reviews all these years. It really means a lot to us. Plus, here's also a QR code. Where you can find just the type of meals that are right for you. They've got Protein Plus, Calorie Smart, vegetarian and vegan options, and there's all kinds of gourmet options as well, including steak. I know this sounds kind of silly, but one of the added benefits of Factor meals is road trips. You get Factor meals, you get a cooler, you can even reuse the cool packs that they come in inside the box and take them with you on a road trip. I'm not saying eat them in the car. I'm saying when you get to that motel and all you have to choose from, for dinner and stuff, is those restaurants that just reheat hot brown and serve you a glass of cold yellow, hot brown and cold yellow, and you're just staring down the barrel of a $30 plate of matter. Trust me, you'll be much happier with a Factor meal coming out of the hotel microwave than you will by, name your chain restaurant, especially when you got a boogie the next morning. Anyway, speaking of boogieing, I've eaten up enough of your time, but not enough of this. Back to Nick's review. Let's get you back to Nick Roman.
2010 Volkswagen Touareg TDI. I wanted a Cayenne, but my witness protection agent said I can't make any big purchases. Okay, so here's the thing. The Volkswagen Touareg isn't interesting. And that makes it fascinating. It survived Dieselgate. It survived the build quality roller coaster of 21st century Volkswagen. And it did it all while looking about as appealing as a row of HOA-approved benches. I mean, okay, sure, it looks better than an Acura ZDX, but that's damning with faint praise, Being the least grotesque luxury crossover to come out in 2010 is like being the most compassionate person at a Klan rally. What are we even doing here, really? So yeah, I'm the Roman, this is Race to the Bottom, and I'm inching closer to my third year of searching for a car so bad that it'll send me into a spiral that only a Friday the 13th marathon can bring me out of. What can I say? I like imagining the survivors trying to explain to a therapist what happened. Yes, a bloated, waterlogged goalie from hell chased us around Manhattan until he got washed away by a tide of toxic sewer waste that transformed him back into an innocent little boy. No, we didn't help him! So, The Touareg runs on the same platform as the Porsche Cayenne and the Audi Q7, and in a way, this sits between the two in terms of design function. The Cayenne is tuned for performance, but the Q7 seems to put luxury and comfort ahead of utility. The Touareg, meanwhile, doesn't seem to really prioritize one over the other. It's sort of going for a more workman-like blend of the two philosophies. You get this nice low-end torque for immediate power delivery, and interior quality that will keep you comfortable without overdoing it with intrusive tech, harsh surfaces, and stiff seats. Yet, of all the ridiculous things to impress me right off the bat, I found myself digging the turning radius. I wasn't expecting to have this range of motion, you know? It's like living for years with a kinked shoulder and then you have surgery and suddenly you're back to beating up all the people who still owe you money. Oh, what? You thought I forgot? You thought you could limbo under this fade? You have 3 days to get me my money before I put your ass on eternity leave. This has SUV dimensions, but with the proportional flexibility of a sedan, to where I thought, oh, so this is what they mean by crossover. The 2010 Volkswagen Touareg genuinely feels like it's straddling the line between the utility and power of a larger car and the dynamics and handling of something smaller and more driver-focused. But then I think that there's a reason for that goes beyond Volkswagen's intentions. You see, the engine here is the 3-liter V6 turbo diesel, making 225 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. From factory. But, as noted by my fantastic Canadian volunteer Zach, who came down all the way from beautiful Quebec, he performed a modest tune and an EGR delete that increases those figures to anywhere from between 260 to 280 horsepower and 450 to 480 pound-feet of torque. No matter how fast you need to go or how soon you need to accelerate, that power is there for the taking, like trick-or-treat candy left out on a stoop because the person in the house doesn't want to have to deal with children. But also they're watching so that they can get bent out of shape if you take more than one piece. This has more torque than a wrench turned by a frustrated hand. And I think what makes the Touareg compelling and appealing isn't just how good of a job it does at being an automotive Swiss Army knife, but how little attention it craves while doing it. This doesn't roar with the insecurity of someone with a point to prove. This isn't that one coworker you have whose dad told him he'd never amount to anything, and so he spent the next 40 years making it everybody else's problem. This feels focused and purposeful. And while the Aisin 9D 6-speed automatic transmission isn't flashy, it is consistently and undramatically responsive. The car doesn't feel like it's doing any of the driving for you, in the way that some cars today overdo it with the assistance tech to where it doesn't feel like the car trusts you. Here, the driver assistance tech is basically limited to parking sensors and a rear-view camera, and I think you get traction control too. But in the grand scheme of things, this is automotive Darwinism. Either you know how to check your blind spots or you don't. Either you know how to keep your own lane or you don't. Are you going to flip your car and end up in traction? Maybe. That's real traction control, buddy. That's freedom. God help me, the 2010 Volkswagen Touareg is a reminder that we used to build cars that trusted us enough to drive them and live. And in a way, that's been lost in the move towards a technology-assisted future. Trust is huge. It's the foundation of utility, because if you can't trust your car to trust you, why even have it? Don't get me wrong, I like driver assistance tech, particularly as a method of compensating for bad drivers on the road. But by the same token, the tech should be supplementing the drive rather than permeating every aspect of it. Like, who needs this much help to drive a Hyundai Tucson? Of course, I say this, but it's not like I'm the best driver in the world either, so I'm basically courting bad karma right now. And to be honest, there have been plenty of moments where lane keep assist or adaptive cruise control would have made my life way easier. And I'm also aware that you can disable most of this technology in a lot of cases. But the point I'm trying to make is that mistrust is being coded into modern cars so that the driving experience feels muted and less engaging, even when that tech is turned off. Because the cars, their steering and suspension, those are tuned for those systems. So while the Touareg isn't this mind-blowing car, it feels like a revelation by comparison to a lot of new cars today. But even ignoring the old man shouting at cloud complaints about technology, the Touareg has merit as the crossover that manages to actually cross over from car to SUV. The 2010 Volkswagen Touareg TDI is the official car of my personal motto that I've carried around for years. Whatever I am, it's this. And what I mean by that is that whatever I am in that moment is what I need to be. There is no settled self, just a wardrobe of situational hats that get put on. And that's basically what the Touareg is. And to be fair, a lot of other cars are like that. But the Touareg almost feels different, you know? Even when it doesn't do something well, it's still trying to fill a role that is required in that moment. Merge fast, pass those obnoxious lane campers, mount a steep incline because you have the torque to do it. It's like the categorical opposite of my old Kia Rio, and I know, different cars, different segments, but I appreciated what this could do and how quickly it could do it when I needed it to. This is really what a crossover should be. A torque buffet with more power than you'll reasonably need, and enough quiet, low-tech comfort to still feel like you're living in the future, without all the headaches of living in the future. However, while this might sound like a glowing review, there are some details about this Touareg that were really hard to overlook for me. Even though they're relatively minor in comparison to the things that generally throw me off, there's a minor shudder coming from the suspension where I thought I might have been somehow driving this wrong, until Zach assured me it was just the Touareg, and I can't recall if we ever really narrowed the issue down. I just assumed it was the suspension, but I mean, it could have been one of the control arms, it could have been the diff. I'm not a mechanic, I don't know. But it was enough to be noticeable, even if not really concerning in that moment, because it was minor, to me anyway. But in some spots, braking and cornering felt a bit dicey just due to the sheer mass of this thing. I mean, it's almost 3 tons. In moments, the Touareg felt imbalanced. But even if I ignore that, I'm still not sure I love driving this. It is good. It is enjoyable. But it's as competent and forgettable as an open mic night performance from a musician who's been covering Bon Iver for the last 12 years. You know what you're getting, what it's going to sound like, and you might even appreciate it and respect it in that moment. But you're probably not going to be thinking about it on the drive home. I admire the Touareg, and I respect it, and I absolutely enjoyed it, but I don't desire it, if that makes sense. And it's kind of frustrating because I wonder at what point a car being good stopped being enough. Why do cars need to be exemplary? Can't we just enjoy them for the job that they do? I don't know. Even if I do try to enjoy a car on its own terms, it sometimes feels like taking that approach is missing the forest for the trees, that there's more going on here, that there's deeper level of analysis that can be happening, but sometimes surface-level cars require surface-level readings. With the Touareg, what you see is mostly what you get, so how much of a deeper analysis does this really require? It's a solid, low-tech car without a bunch of headaches from the future. And while I do wish this had more interior space, especially considering this doesn't give you a third row, the fold-down seats open this up so that it's more than enough for most standard, non-heavy-duty tasks, to where I could see how this would have tremendous usefulness in my life. considering how often I'm hauling stuff around. So while I wish cabin space were more roomy, it's a fairly minor gripe in the scheme of everything else. Although I will say that the sloping lip of the rear cargo area is one of the most casually stupid design choices I've seen on an SUV. Yeah, let's just have this slope downward, like the on-ramp to the highway of tolerance. Cool, that's exactly what I wanted. Why did they do this? I might as well be the owner of a blind fawn because I've got no idea. But even then, the towing capacity kinda makes up the difference, getting above 7,700 pounds with a braked trailer. So that even when it's making a dog's dinner out of something as straightforward as loading and unloading the trunk, it's compensating by giving you the versatility to haul a trailer for a classic car, or a horse, or some sort of car-horse hybrid, like a Centaur you put up for sale on Cars and Bits. Now, the reason Zach bought this is utility. Well, that and because he was sick of driving a Pontiac Sunfire, which is the car I was originally scheduled to review, before it crapped out on him just a few days before we were going to meet up. So he offered this instead, and hey, anything can be a candidate for race to the bottom if you believe in yourself. And obviously it's a good thing he has this because, as Zach puts it, this is ideal for Quebec's harsh winters, with high enough ride height for rough terrain and a low risk of bottoming out in deep snow. Clearly, winter is an even bigger deal up north than it is down here in PA, since Quebec mandates winter tires every year starting December 1st. And so that's probably why these sold better in Canada than the US, proportionally. And because Volkswagen generally has a higher market share in Canada than they do down here. But Zach intimated that owning the car is kind of wearing on him. And I get it. It's a feeling I know all too well. The classic anxiety of what's going to break next. You see, while a previous owner did give this some positive upgrades like a 2-inch lift and Brembo brakes, they also gave it tires that are too large to accommodate the wheel wells without rubbing against them. And the previous owner also installed aftermarket lights that don't really work.
Put this wire here, which is like a really shoddy job actually, but that must go to the LED lights, which don't work. But I honestly, I don't know for sure, because I flipped those switches, they don't do anything.
The turbo wire also became severely corroded, necessitating Zach limping it to go get repaired, only for the serpentine belt to snap one day after getting it fixed. He's putting in the time and money to keep this on the road, but as Zach explained to me, the next time he has to get it towed, he's selling this. And it all goes back to trust. There's a tacit understanding between an automaker and their consumers that if I drive one of your cars and I make the effort to maintain it, your engineering isn't going to punish me for trying to keep this thing alive. And similarly, there's a tacit understanding that the consumer isn't going to blame every little failure of the car on the manufacturer, because you can't expect a car to run forever, and sometimes failures happen that no automaker can really guard against, like weather or time or mechanic incompetence. In this way, trust is a two-way street between automaker and consumer, between the car and its driver. Trust is a social construct and a social contract. But like a contract, trust can be broken, and Volkswagen taught us that themselves. This car is from an era just before Volkswagen got caught being Volkswagen. Before Dieselgate sank their public perception like a hot coal through an ice cream cake. Before they hopped on the tech-forward bandwagon and gave us Golfs with climate touch controls, and Tiguans and Atlases with software buggy enough you'd think it were running on Windows Vista, and then surgically giving consumers a new ass to charge them out of because one ass isn't good enough. I'm talking nonsense like subscriptions for additional horsepower on electric vehicles. Oh, whoa, we're not playing to the cheap seats anymore, pal. We're playing directly to the tiresome excess of human consumption, written across a face both sickly and well-fed. When the rich say let them eat cake, they aren't talking about going ass to mouth, and when Volkswagen says moving people forward, it's more of a confession than a promotional slogan. As if every new Volkswagen is here to put you on a conveyor belt to the future, and who cares if you enjoy the process of getting there. We're gonna stack profits higher than Scientology NDAs, and we're gonna bring your lollygagging front-facing ass with us, buddy, whether you like it or not. Basically, consumers stopped trusting Volkswagen, so they decided to make cars that didn't trust consumers. When we were kids and we envisioned the cars of the future, I doubt anybody was envisioning the Volkswagen Touareg. Hell, this Touareg probably felt lifeless in 2010 by comparison to its contemporaries. But even with the threat of mechanical failure and outdated styling and technology, this feels more immediately and urgently alive than some of the newer cars that I've driven, than some of the newer Volkswagens that I've driven. Cars in which driving feels like more of a passive experience than something intended to engage you. It's why I kind of yearn for more cars like this, even while I wouldn't say that I loved this car. We spent our lives dreaming of the cars of the future, just to arrive at that future unimpressed. It's fine. And now we're kind of looking backwards into the past for things to be excited about. We look backwards with hope, with joy, and with reverence, rather than looking to the future for those things. And while it is 15 years ago, 2010 really wasn't that long ago. Yet it might as well be ancient Rome for how much things have changed. Maybe it's the newly crowned 40-year-old in me, but cars kind of feel different now. New cars, anyway. The ones that are being churned out. They're nice, they're plush, they're advanced, but they also feel vaguely soulless. And I'm sure people were saying the same thing in 2010 about this. Maybe that's what we're destined to always end up doing. Looking back reflexively, recursively, saying that the way the previous generation did it was better, that the current generation couldn't possibly compare. And maybe we're doomed to that cycle because ultimately we lost the trust of the people tasked with making the cars in which we'll spend a significant portion of our lives, and they've lost our trust in return. You know, you'd think that regaining consumer trust would be a priority for any company, but trust doesn't pay the same sort of dividends as control. And the more we feel like we can't drive without the systems these companies provide, without those creature comforts, the more we're going to rely on what they're putting out. In that sense, maybe new car drivers do trust automakers, not because they want to, but because they don't really have a choice. Now, does this make my bottom 5? No. But it doesn't make my top 5 either. Yet I would be lying if I said the world couldn't use more cars just like this. If nothing else, for an all too brief afternoon, I enjoyed the experience, and it was a genuine privilege to meet Zach. Thank you so much for coming all the way from Canada to be a part of this show, and for all of your kindness and your knowledge. I really can't thank you enough. And I genuinely do hope we get to meet again. And to you watching, if you dig this channel, Patreon is the absolute best way to support us and to keep RCR going. For $1, you'll get these videos early along with other exclusive content. Hey, that 90-minute video on the outlaw origins of NASCAR, they got it early and ad-free, and Patreon support is helping to fund the next RCR stories, because I literally am not capable of making those videos without that support. So if RCR brings any sort of value to your week, please consider joining our Patreon. The link is in the description. But you can also support us by leaving a like, a comment, subscribing, and trusting that bell icon to actually work when you set it to receive all notifications, but it's kind of a tall order. In fact, if you're already subscribed, just double check the bell icon is still set for all notifications. Sometimes it just unclicks it for you. Yay, YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your week, and hey, happy Halloween. TDI. Foot to the floor and then you're free to fly tonight. Use all the torque but also keep in my mind. Trust in yourself because you have to drive right. Hey, look at me as I approach you in the passing lane. Das Auto got your face reacting strange. It's not a Tiguan, just another Touareg. TDI. Foot to the floor and then you're free to fly tonight. Use all the torque but also keep in my mind. Trust in yourself because you have to drive right. Hey, look at me. Oh wait, the song is over.